Have you ever thought about how Disney's creating lost media? Now, there was this article that came out a week or two ago saying that Disney were going to stop selling physical or physical DVDs and Blu-rays in Australia and New Zealand. Your first thought would be, oh yeah, just go Disney Plus, which is fine for 90% of things, but not for everything. Not everything's on Disney Plus. And if you have it physically, you can keep stuff forever. So I obviously buy a lot of physical stuff. I'm literally, like, this camera is literally on top of the Donkey Kong bongos for the GameCube. You can see this Wii U, this is a Japanese one. Amiibo, I don't know. They're physical things. But Disney's not going to let me do that anymore. They don't want my money. Now, that wouldn't be such a problem. And it really isn't, because it didn't say everywhere. It just said, like, in the stores. So you can probably still buy an Australian copy of whatever online. So it's not a huge deal. But why isn't everything that they release online or on Disney Plus released physically? Just my thoughts. Let's go through the history, specifically in relation to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you don't know, started in 2008 with the movie Iron Man. This was also at a time when Marvel had just come out of bankruptcy and they were banking on Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, I'll get to that in a second, to do really well, to fund money for Marvel Studios, for Marvel to have their own production company, because beforehand they were licensing out their characters to Fox, Sony, Lionsgate for their animated movies, New Line Cinema for Blade, but they wanted to have their own production company. So they got some funding, and then they asked a few companies to help them out. So Iron Man 2, and a few others were funded by Paramount. And they were also distributed by Paramount. Fun fact. All these movies were distributed under Paramount, but they were made by Marvel Studios. This was in the year 2008. In 2008, there was also the Marvel Studios movie, The Incredible Hulk. The Incredible Hulk has some weird licensing issue because the Hulk, as a film character, was owned by Universal when they released the 2003 movie Hulk, starring Eric Bana. But then it gets a bit more complicated. See, somehow, Universal owns first right refusal on a solo Hulk movie now, because of some deal they made with Marvel Studios, so Marvel Studios could use the Hulk. Which means, if Marvel Studios want to make a Hulk movie, they gotta ask Universal, which makes The Incredible Hulk the first movie to not be made by Paramount. It's also the second one in total, so big whoop. And The Incredible Hulk, as we all know, did not do very well, both in reviews and in box office, and they had some issues with their main star, Edward Norton. Regardless, on all of that, there was never a sequel to The Incredible Hulk, and the Hulk now only appears in other movies that don't have Hulk in the title, because they're allowed to do that, somehow. They also own the rights to a Namor movie, but that's not going to come up, it's just a little fun fact. Anyway, in 2009, the Walt Disney Company, I think is what the name of the company is, bought Marvel as a whole. So they bought Marvel Studios as well in that package. Now, because Marvel Studios still had this deal with Paramount for a while, they continued to make movies with Paramount, or just at least released by Paramount, up until I think it was Iron Man 3 or Thor the Dark World. And you can see that if you buy a physical copy, it has the Paramount logo at the top. I'm looking at my copies over there at the top, which means they were distributed by Paramount. But after Iron Man 3 or Thor the Dark World or whatever it was, Marvel and Disney now distributed the movies. Disney had to buy back the distribution to all these other movies. It took them a while, but they have eventually now, only just recently, have finally got distribution rights to all of the Phase 1 and the movies from Phase 2 movies that were not distributed by them, including The Incredible Hulk. That was very recently. That was June of this year. And that was just because the contract expired. But why am I bringing up this, and what is distribution rights? What does this mean? I know this is a very large tangent of what I was talking about, but we're getting back to the point eventually. Distribution rights are pretty simple. Who has the right to distribute the thing? Who has the right to distribute this Mario manga? Who has the right to distribute Parks and Recreation? You know, all things that are distributed by a company. Now, not all the time, but most of the time, the distribution is done by the company that made it. Paramount, and Marvel's case was Marvel Studios made it, distributed by Paramount. Whatever, it's the whole thing, but you get the basic picture, right? So, 90% of copies, at least if you buy the original print copies of Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, The First Avenger, Marvel's The Avengers, Iron Man 3. I'm not sure on Thor the Dark World because I have a bootleg copy and I don't know if it's actually distributed by Paramount or not because it's not in the movie. But the bootleg copy says it is distributed by Paramount. I don't know. So Paramount released all of those physically for anyone to buy. And The Incredible Hulk, distributed by Universal up to June 2023. Same thing applies. You could buy them physically. There wasn't streaming services around when the MCU started, but at some point they were all on. Probably Netflix at some point.